Wife sets a trap for cheating husband, books a hotel room using his mistress's name. This might be some second-hand revenge, as I was more of a spectator than anything else. Hope you all enjoy. This story, of course, takes place pre-corona. I'd been working as a front desk agent for about a week. It was my first time working in a hotel, so I was still learning the ropes, even though I'd previously worked as a check-in agent on a cruise line. I was working the afternoon shift and things had been pretty slow. A couple of check-ins here and there, and that's about it. It was about 7 p.m. when this lady, we'll call her Libby, comes in, and after talking things out at the valet, she makes her way over to me. We exchange greetings and she tells me that she'd like to reserve a room, but only for a couple of hours. Obviously, we're not a motel, so I let her know the minimum of time that she could reserve a room would be for a full night. After asking what the price would be, $240 is way too much for the kind of hotel I work at, by the way, she agrees and hands me her credit card. This is where things get weird. As soon as I ask for her ID to make the reservation, Libby backtracks and says that she doesn't want her name anywhere on the reservation and would like to make it under the name of the guy who'd be joining her later, instead. I pause for a moment, and after asking her again if she was planning on using the room as well, I tell her that I at least need to put her name into the accompanying list for the room. I reassure her that only the employees would be able to see said list and that, no, the guy she was planning to meet wouldn't see it. I would like to make it very clear that throughout this whole interaction, Libby has been super composed, kind, and understanding. At this point, however, I'm just thinking she's here for a one-night stand and doesn't want the dude to know anything about her because she's probably married or something like that. Which I can work with, sure, but why not just get a motel, lady? This theory of mine is further solidified when Libby asks me to make a note in the reservation so that, if at any point we need to address her by name around the guy, we wouldn't call her by her real name, and instead she gives a fake name, or so I thought, to address her by. At this point, I'm obviously bewildered, but still trying to be accommodating and trying really hard not to let it show how much I'm trying to figure out what the heck is going on. We go through the rest of the check-in process, and she even goes as far as showing me a picture of the guy, so I'll know who he is when he comes in. I hand her the key and she heads to her room. About an hour later, mystery dude walks in. Let's call him Jake. My coworker, who has no clue of anything, ends up checking him in, so I don't really get to see much of Jake. To be honest, at this point, I still wasn't giving the whole thing a lot more thought other than, that's a bit weird, huh? Not even 30 minutes had passed when Jake went up to Libby, when Libby comes back down and hands me both the keys. They'd received one each. She says, "Thank you," in the most serious yet cordial way, and then walks off. Multiple thoughts went through my head as this lady was making her way to the valet. First, that was too fast even for a quickie. Second, why did she give me 2 keys? Where's Jake? And third, Libby, please tell me that you didn't murder Jake. Security is standing behind me, staring Libby down and probably having the same thought process as I am. The supervisor for security usually spends the night hanging out at the front desk anyway. My coworker and I were whispering with each other, still trying to figure out what the heck happened, because that did not look like a lady who'd just had a pleasant romp in the sheets. Cue Jake coming down the stairs and… okay, we can breathe, he's not dead. Now, what happened next we couldn't see because we suddenly had an onslaught of distressed passengers. Like 30 passengers from an airline who had to cancel or delay a flight for whatever reason, and they'd been redirected to a hotel to stay at while they waited for the next one, however long that might be. I was so busy I just wanted to die. After all that, I thought I wouldn't find out what the heck had actually happened between Libby and Jake. But then, the worker from the valet came over and boy did he have some tea to spill. It turns out that Libby had gone as far as asking the valet to park her car in a way that the license plate wouldn't be visible in. Why? Because it turns out that Jake is Libby's husband. And you might be asking yourself by this point, why has this lady gone through so much trouble to hide anything that might give her identity away from her husband? Well, dear reader, because the alias that Libby gave me just so happened to be the name of the girl Jake was cheating on her with. This woman somehow got her cheating husband to believe that his girlfriend had booked them a sweet, sweet night at the hotel, only for him to show up and find his wife sitting on the bed instead. This badass motherfricker of a woman came back downstairs after probably massacrating the heck out of this idiot boy with not a hair out of place, and calmly had the valet bring both of their cars back, and then patiently waited for Jake Schmake to get his sorry butt back to the lobby so that she could extend her hand and demand their house key from him. She then got into her car and drove away. The only thing that would have made this even better was if Jake the Schmake's girlfriend had also been there to tear into him as well. I like to think that she had had a part to play in this whole thing, since how else would Libby have managed to trick him into getting to the hotel? Point is, this woman is all I aspire to be. In short, badass motherfricker of a woman tricked her cheating husband into thinking his girlfriend had booked them a night at a hotel, only for him to walk in and find her instead. What a terrific way for someone to get revenge on their absolute jerk of a spouse. If she'd come in with this at home when during their usual everyday dynamic where they were already maybe used to disliking each other and having their guards up, it might have been harder to call him out and pin him down on the specifics without him obfuscating, counterblaming and other things that some cheating partners do. Better to ambush him in a hotel room, rock plant, eggplant at the ready, undeniably checking into the room under the name of his mistress, without a hope and a prayer at worming his way out of it. Get a full confession while he's completely laid out from shock, and then inform him that he's out of the house and take his key off him when he's outside and has just spilled the beans on all his dirty dealings. This was expert-level situation management from this lady, and while he likely had legal fallbacks he could resort to when he came back to his senses, this must have been very satisfying for her in the moment. Entitled neighbor expects my gardener to clean her garden for free. This happened recently. I live in a unit complex of about 20 units, where most of the neighbors know each other or have spoken at one point or another. One of the neighbors, Ben, has a lawnmower and mows everyone's lawns for free. This will be important for later. I've been in isolation because of COVID-19 for the past month, and I've been getting extra money from the government lately that I don't need. So I decided to put that money to good use and hire a gardener to fix up my front and back garden. The front garden is a complete mess. For the past 2 weeks, he's been coming and going to fix up my front garden in small increments, not interacting with me directly for obvious reasons. This happened yesterday when my gardener was working on my front garden. One of my neighbors, Jessica, came up to the gardener. I have security cameras outside so I can see what's going on in the driveway, and she began complimenting him on his great work. I popped my head out so I could hear what was being said, but they couldn't see me yet. "Oh yeah, that looks really good. I think you're doing a really nice job." She started getting overly complimentary, and I had a sneaking suspicion of what she was getting at. She said the next part, not knowing that I was around the corner and could hear everything. "You're doing such a good job here. Do you think you could work on my garden after you're done? I don't think the lady who's hired you would mind." I come around the corner. "Hey Jessica, what's up?" She realized she was busted. Oh, hello. Well, I was saying what a good job your gardener has done so far. Do you think he'd mind doing my garden as well?" I say I'm sure he wouldn't mind. It's $30 an hour or something, or $300 for the whole day. "What? I'm not paying for it. You hired a gardener, so it's your responsibility to do my garden as well." I hired a gardener to do my garden. It's not up to me to pay for your garden to be done at the same time. "But Ben mows the lawn for free. Your gardener should do my backyard for free too." "Sorry, Jessica, but if you want a private gardener, you'll have to pay for it like everyone else." "But I'm on a disability pension and I can't afford it. Clearly you can." "I'm on a disability pension too, so don't try that. I spend my money on important things, not the alcohol I see you buying all the time, so unless you're going to pay for his time, please let him get back to work." Jessica huffed and stomped off, and I haven't heard a peep from her since. But give it time, I'm sure she'll be back soon enough to get more things for free. There's one of our classic Karen disconnects right there. We both get the same free lawnmower, so now that you have a paid gardener, he should do my garden for free as well. That's how it works. Also, check out these compliments at the start. These people are never nice unless they want something. It's the same reason some of us are so cynical and wary whenever people give us compliments. They really ruin society for the genuinely nice folks out there. Good on the author for sticking up for the neighbor who might have been tricked into at least doing some work for free just out of peer pressure. Although I don't know what was going on in your garden that it was going to take multiple days to do the whole thing. Just get some of your relatives over to do your garden, Jessica, and make them lemonade and cakes or something. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, linked below. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Neighbor took my parking spot after I shoveled, so I poured water in his windshield. It was a cold winter day, 8 inches of snow had fallen the night before, and the wind chill made it feel as if it were in the negatives of Fahrenheit. I drive an all-wheel drive SUV, so I had no issues getting out. My wife, on the other hand, drives a Prius, which slides with the smallest amount of moisture on the road. My car was down at the time, so we had to take my wife's car. I spent 45 minutes in the freezing cold shoveling that car out so we could get to the store. We were gone for an hour, and when we came back, our neighbor had taken the spot that I'd shoveled. Our apartment complex doesn't have assigned parking, but in the winter it's understood that if you shovel a spot, it's yours. So when I saw his car in the spot I'd just shoveled, I was pretty angry. I went inside and filled 2-gallon jugs of water. Went back and poured them on his windshield. Rinse and repeat. I must have poured about 10 gallons of water on his car. Being how cold it was already freezing by the time I'd poured the last gallon on. It sat like that overnight. The next morning I got to watch as he helplessly tried to scrape all the layers of ice off his windshield. Don't take my goddamn parking spot. I'm not looking for judgment because I already know that I'm the jerk here. The point of this is to tell my particular tale of revenge. I'd say it was pretty satisfying. I find it so funny that people are writing in to tell me that I committed vandalism. No damage was done except for wasting about 5 to 10 minutes of his time. Ever hear of freezing rain? It does the same thing I did to his car. Never does any damage. This was also many years ago, and the cops haven't come to arrest me yet, so I think I'm good. Yeah, this is on the more ambiguous end of the jerk vigilante spectrum. I don't know that the guy whose car you locked into an ice cube was guilty of being a jerk as much as he was guilty of just being kind of stupid and inconsiderate. I'll admit that when I read the title I was fairly convinced that you were going to use boiling water and crack his windshield, so I'm more relieved than anything when I got to that point. I think you could have at least confirmed with the guy to his face whether it was an accident before you went to jerk Batman on him, but then again that would probably have also given him a mega hint as to who the author of his misfortune was. So I guess it depends whether you value revenge or integrity more. I'm going to say a lot more people who watch would have gone for revenge. Late husbands, estranged, awful parents are demanding access to my unborn son. I'm a 30-year-old woman who lost my husband to terminal illness last year. We'd always wanted kids, so we had some of his baby batter frozen for a later date. Sadly, he lost his battle and passed away. I'm now in a place where I feel capable mentally of taking care of a child myself, and it was a success. I'm expecting a little boy. My husband's parents somehow got wind of this and are constantly demanding that they be allowed into my son's life as he'll be the last part of their son. The thing is though, my husband had nothing to do with his parents. Growing up, they gave him the worst sort of upbringing and he got out of there as soon as he could. He hadn't spoken to them in 10 years, and when it became clear that things were taking a nosedive, he made sure I knew he didn't want them at the funeral. I don't think he'd want them in our son's life at all either, so I'm trying to respect his wishes. But family and friends are telling me I should give them a chance. That perhaps they've changed and how this could be a second chance for them. Perhaps it's cruel, but I don't want my son to be a guinea pig to trial run if they're better now. Is it a jerk move to not give them the chance to prove themselves and to deny them contact with my son? My own parents have said how if the positions were reversed, it would break their hearts to be kept from the child. They've suggested supervised visits, but I'm against even that. I feel under so much stress about this as they're constantly messaging my social media and I've had to block them, and now they've even been coming to my house to try and convince me. Honestly, this is all up to you, author. It's completely your prerogative to withhold visitation rights from your dear deceased husband's parents. And I can get that the people who are saying that you should be giving them a second chance might have their hearts in the right place, but honestly, would they be okay telling that to your husband, who it sounds like he had a long, painful upbringing at their hands? If they'd been so disrespectful of your privacy as to blow up your social media and make uninvited calls on their house, despite your apparent wishes to be left alone with the decision, then perhaps that's answering the question of whether they've learned to be better and more considerate people. I'd be leaning towards enlisting the help of lawyers to keep them away, because these early signs aren't good. Am I the jerk for telling my stepmom that she can use the missing child support payments to fund my part of my dad's gift? Sorry for the wordy title. I'm an 18-year-old guy. My dad left my mum when I was 6, not because of my stepmom, And 4 years ago, he met and married my stepmom, Ida. She had 3 kids from a previous marriage that my dad loved to parent instead of me. After they got together, I saw him, at best, 7 to 8 times every year because they moved 5 hours away. A year later, he had a change of heart and demanded his 50-50 custody, which made me miserable. He built a room for me at his new house, tried to fill the missing years with new gifts, and even planned a big birthday party for my 12th. At 13, I stopped going to his place. For me, he just wasn't my dad. After he left, my mum's brother, who was only 25 at the time, took me in as one of his boys. Mum and I moved back to my grandparents' place and my uncle lived next door. He already had a kid and he was always there for me. He's my father, while my aunt is like my second mother for me, and my cousin is like the brother I never had. When I stopped going to my bio dads, my mum had to get a second job, so I used to sleep at my uncle's pretty much every day. I didn't understand why until last year when my grandma told me my dad had stopped paying child support. Out of spite. My mum didn't have the money to take him to court. Ever since I turned 15, Father's Day is about my uncle for me. My cousin and I make him breakfast and plan a fun day with him with a small gift. But now that I'm 18, my stepmom sent me a Facebook message saying that I'm old enough to give my part for my bio dad's gift. This year, his stepkids want to give him a car, and she says that I should put in 10%, like $1,800 to $2,100. I just sent her a lol meme and said she could use my missing child support to cover it. She blocked me, and later on, one of her kids sent me a message telling me what a jerk I was. So, am I the jerk? No. Look, you want to be credited as someone's dad? Pay your damn child support. It doesn't matter if they want to see you. You don't get to take the benefits without paying the dues, man. It does sound like maybe he genuinely tried to foster a relationship with you for a while there, but you've got to respect the boundaries of your kid, and you don't get to throw a tantrum and withhold your legal obligations just because you don't like the situation. It upsets me a bit that if the author's mum could scrape together an initial sum for a lawyer, she'd be fine, because no judge would uphold what the dad was doing here. He's essentially punishing her more than anyone else for the fact that his kid doesn't want to see him after years of his own neglect. The author is not the jerk here. That title resides firmly with the man who left his mother and bailed on the responsibilities. Those tables that know the owner. For a long time, I worked for a restaurant that went by a person's name. Let's call it Clarissa's Winery. Putting her name on the building attracted a lot of bad behavior. I couldn't go a week without someone claiming they were a friend of Clarissa's in the hopes of a discount. And you'd be shocked at how many of them had been best friends since grade school. Fortunately, Clarissa was always in the restaurant, so it was never difficult to sort out which of them were full of crap. I'd light up with a huge smile and let each customer know the great news. I'm sure Clarissa would be thrilled to hear an old friend is here. I'd be happy to show you to her if you'd like to say hello. Unsurprisingly, most of them were in, quote, too much of a hurry, or they didn't want to disturb her. Only one customer ever took me up on it. She hesitantly agreed before adding, "Oh, I'm not sure she'll remember me, it's been a very long time." Enthusiastically, I led her to the back of our dining room to a tall glass case featuring a statue of an angel. Here we are, this is Clarissa. She's celebrating her 30th anniversary with us, so she's almost a local piece of history. Isn't she gorgeous? The customer and I stared at each other with poker faces for a long time before she said, "Yes, lovely. Where's your bathroom?" and hurried away. No discount for her today. Lucky for me, the owner, Josephine, was a family friend and let me get away with being a smart jerk sometimes. In short, don't claim you know the owner unless you actually know the owner's name. Haha! Of course, we get a lot of stories about these awful liars here, and it's always satisfying to see them put in their place. It's in the owner's best interest to back you up here in the long run, surely. A bajillion customers all trying to get discounts by pretending to know you isn't good for business. God, it's almost tempting to run a small place under a ridiculous name now, just so I can see people bluffing their way in, while I, the owner, make coffee. "Oh, you're a close friend of Bartholomew Flatulent III. Hold on, let me get him." Point to a picture of a cartoon man with a bare butt, letting out a terrific guff of air from his posterior. "Now get out!" Obviously, I'd probably fail in this business fairly quickly, but worth it? When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. Put the playlist on in the background to finish listening to all the stories. Or if you want to check out some great music, check out easymode.com. If you like Am I the Jerk, give Am I the Genius a shot. Everything linked in the description.